I've lived for nearly 30 years, and I've never been popular with women, but for some reason, kids seem to like me. Babies and strollers passing by on the street, toddlers being led by their parents. They all look at my face with such curiosity and never take their eyes off me. Some even cheerfully stretch out their arms as if wanting to be picked up. Once, while I was crouching on the sidewalk tying my loose shoelaces, an unfamiliar little boy approached and offered me a balloon. I went through college without much of a plan, and when it was time to start job hunting, I realized I didn't have a particular career passion. The only thing going for me was that kids seemed to like me. That being said, I wasn't especially fond of children. But somehow, although I wasn't sure if it was a special skill, I thought of becoming a childcare worker. After working at a daycare as an assistant for 3 years, I got my childcare certification. When I moved to another daycare, I realized something about myself. I'm not a morning person. It's exhausting to deal with hyperactive kids in the morning. So, I looked for a daycare that had afternoon shifts. I found one 6 months ago that offered evening care. It's a great place to work. My hours are from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. Good evening, I'm Mary. Dressed in my uniform, an apron with a bear on it, I cheerfully greeted her at the entrance. Good evening, Catherine's mom. After glancing at me, she gave a cold and emotionless stare. Darn it, I slipped up. She didn't like being referred to as Catherine's mom. Catherine is her 4-year-old daughter, who is under our care 3 times a week. She came to pick up little Catherine after work. People often assume that parents who use night care work in nightlife professions, but in reality, they have various jobs like office workers, teachers, and entrepreneurs. She is a doctor. She's a physician working 3 times a week at a nearby clinic in our neighborhood. I heard she divorced a few years back and is now a single mother. Good evening, Mary. I quickly corrected my greeting and went to wake up sleeping Catherine. Man, that was nerve-wracking. Almost had a heart attack there. To be honest, I had a crush on Catherine's mom. I mean, Mary. I liked her pale skin, natural makeup, and her slightly stern and tsundere appearance. There's no reason. You like what you like. I began to look forward to those brief moments when we exchanged a few words or when I updated her about Catherine's day. After all, in my eyes, it was just a fleeting crush from a plain man nearing his 30s who's never been popular with women. Whether it was the ice cream I had late at night or maybe I caught a chill, I ended up with an upset stomach that day. I've always had a weak stomach. Thinking it was just the usual, I decided to get checked out at the nearby clinic. While filling out the form at the reception, I realized something huge. Today was the day to take care of little Catherine, which means she works at this clinic. Man, how clueless am I, getting treated by her. Do I tell her about my upset stomach? Sweat poured down my forehead. In a panic, I glanced at the staff schedule posted on the waiting room wall. Sure enough, among the 3 doctors listed, there was the name Mary. My chances of being treated by her is 33.3%. I'm no baseball expert, but isn't a 300 hitter pretty good? Does that mean it's hard to achieve? Does that mean my chances of seeing her are also pretty slim? What am I thinking? It's just a 1 in 3 chance. Duh. Trying to calm my racing heart, I took a deep breath. John. I was called into the examination room and, of course, she was the one waiting for me. I immediately recognized her, but something felt different. The first thing I noticed was the thin silver glasses she wore, which she doesn't wear when picking up Catherine in the evening. Her usually subtle makeup was almost non-existent. And the white coat she wore, well, it was a light pink really, but it suited her well. I said, "How are you?" with a polite smile, trying to make a good impression. However, she didn't react at all. She simply checked the form I'd filled out, asked a few routine questions while glancing at her computer, and performed the usual checks. Throughout, she was all business. According to her, my stomach troubles were likely a one-off thing. She ordered a blood test just to be sure and prescribed some medication. I arrived at the daycare 2 hours late. Catherine suddenly hugged me as soon as I walked in. "What's up, Catherine?" While I was comforting her, a female coworker told me that Catherine had been fussy all the time I was absent. While I was away, little Catherine was quite fussy the whole time. She must really like me, I guess. "Good evening, this is Mary." That night, as I greeted her at the daycare's entrance to hand over Catherine, she asked, "Good evening. I'll bring Catherine over now." That's what I replied. She then asked, "How are you feeling?" By the next day, my stomach issues were completely resolved, but ever since that day, I haven't felt great. I don't have a fever, and my appetite is okay. How are you feeling? Just thinking about her words made my stomach churn and gave me palpitations for days. That day, as always, after playing with the kids, I was preparing snacks. Then Catherine, looking grumpy, clung to me. "What's wrong, Catherine?" When I asked, she responded, "I don't like that person. I really don't." Over and over. "Good evening. I'm Mary." That night, when she came to pick up Catherine, I reported the matter to her. I'm not sure who she's talking about, but Catherine seemed quite troubled. I said hesitantly. Mary's face darkened as she responded, "Is that so? I had no idea." About 10 days later, just past 7 p.m., the phone in my office rang. It wasn't the day to look after Catherine. I had just finished putting the kids to bed after dinner and was taking a breather. I happened to pick up the phone. I kept saying hello, but there was just silence on the other end. What's this? A prank call? Annoyed, I hung up. But the phone immediately rang again. Who is this? What do you want? I boldly asked. A familiar voice replied, "Are you John?" I recognized it as Catherine's right away. "What's wrong? What happened?" I asked. Through her tears, Catherine responded, Mommy needs help. It's all because of me. I sensed something very wrong was happening." "Where are you?" "At home." Once I confirmed she was home, I said, "I'm on my way," checked the address on our registration forms, and dashed out. Catherine's place was just 2 subway stops away. I figured taking the subway would be faster than hailing a cab. I ran to the nearest station and jumped onto a train. It was still during the evening rush hour, and the train was packed. 2 high school girls nearby giggled as they looked at me. I followed their gaze to see. I was still wearing my bear-themed apron. I took it off, clutching it under my arm, and used the scribbled address to find Catherine's apartment building. Luckily, another resident was just entering, allowing me to bypass the security door. I repeatedly rang the doorbell and called out to Catherine. The door opened, and Catherine clung to me. I entered the apartment. "Mary, it's me, John from the daycare. Are you okay?" As I called out and moved further into the hallway, I heard her faint voice. "Over here. I can't open the door. Please help." Looking in the direction of her voice, I saw a tall metal shelf had fallen at a 45-degree angle, jamming the bathroom door shut. "It's all right. Right now." I tried to lift the fallen shelf. However, it was firmly stuck and wouldn't budge. I put my back into it, trying to move the shelf with grunts of effort. "Please, help me out." I heard her desperate plea. With my back hurting, I changed my stance and pushed with all my might. Just a little more, almost. With a jerk, the tip of the shelf came free from the bathroom door. The shelf, being made of steel, was light and was easily propped against the wall. Suddenly, the bathroom door swung open with force, striking me hard in the back. "Ouch!" I couldn't help but yell out, rubbing my back. "I'm so sorry," she said, looking genuinely remorseful. When I called the daycare, they told me I could head straight home for the day. "Catherine, it's bedtime," she said to Catherine, who was clinging to me as we sat in the living room drinking coffee. When I offered to help put her to bed, she opened the bedroom door. On the double bed, there was a child's pillow and next to it an adult-sized one. My heart raced, thumping loudly. I thought I might even get a nosebleed. After putting Catherine to bed and returning to the living room, she explained the situation. She works 3 days a week at a clinic near the daycare and also at another hospital where she has been working for a long time. The head of that hospital was her mentor. Recently, the hospital director had proposed a match for her. The suitor was a distant relative of the director. They had already been on several dinner dates. It felt like a bell tolling loudly in my head. He's not a bad guy, but I'm just not sure if I want to date him. She had 2 reasons for her hesitation. One was Catherine. When she introduced Catherine to the guy, Catherine took an instant dislike to him. It suddenly clicked for me. I realized that when Catherine previously said, "I don't like that man, I hate him," she was talking about him. They had plans to meet him again on her next day off. But that night, when she told Catherine about it, she became moody. That's when she went to the bathroom, and a sulking Catherine, in a fit of temper, knocked over the steel shelf. The shelf was brand new and empty, so even Catherine could easily topple it. But how did you manage to call for help in that situation? As I was impressed, she mentioned she had set it up beforehand for an instant connection. I thought of calling the daycare on the spot and had Catherine call them. She said that, then added sincerely, "Thank you," expressing her gratitude to me. After leaving her place and walking along the road in front of the apartment complex, a thought suddenly crossed my mind. What was that second reason she mentioned she was troubled about? About a month later, little Catherine was leaving the daycare. When I asked the principal why, he said it was due to her mother's work commitments. Then, on Catherine's last day, she said, "It's Mom's birthday soon. This is a gift," and drew a picture of her mother's face. When I tried to take a peek at the drawing, Catherine covered it with her body. "What's wrong, Catherine? Let me see." Despite my coaxing, she kept refusing to show it. However, I could tell there was a tiny figure drawn next to the mother's face in the picture. That evening, the time had finally come to say goodbye to both Mary and Catherine. I plucked up the courage to ask Mary, "Is it about the job at that local clinic?" "I've decided to quit," she replied. Her voice sounded distant. She sounded a bit irritated. She further explained, in a matter-of-fact tone, that she would now be working full-time at another hospital she had been affiliated with, which has a daycare facility. Catherine would be taken care of there full-time. So, she's decided to go ahead with that matchmaking. Walking out to the daycare's gate to see them off, Catherine kept looking back and waving at me. But Mary never once looked back, seeming quite indifferent. I felt a lump in my throat. A few days later, a call for me came through at the daycare's office. It was from Mary. She wanted me to come to her place next Thursday at 6 in the evening. I told her I had work and couldn't make it at that time. "Please make it work. I'll be waiting," she said, and hung up before I could respond. I was puzzled. Why would she want to see me? I had no clue whatsoever. I managed to convince the principal to give me the day off. All day, I was restless, and I couldn't even eat. I left my home a little past 4 p.m. The nearest station to her apartment was less than 30 minutes away, so I arrived over an hour earlier than the scheduled time. I went up to her apartment building a few times, then headed back to the train station, wandered around the shopping district, and returned to her apartment building again. After doing that a couple of times, I finally rang the doorbell at her building's entrance at 6:05. "We've been waiting for you. Come on in." Despite having invited me over, her voice lacked warmth or friendliness. When she greeted me at the entrance, her face was tense with anxiety. Urged by her, I stepped inside the apartment. Suddenly, Catherine came running from the back. "Long time no see, John," and she clung to my leg. Once led to the dining area, the table was laid out with a lavish spread: salad, fried chicken, French fries, pizza, and a whole birthday cake. Taken aback by the unexpected setup, I looked at her. "Today's my birthday, remember, my 31st. That's why." I thought to myself, she could have just mentioned it right from the start. "Catherine insisted on inviting you." "Oh, wasn't Catherine drawing a birthday present for her mom the other day?" Catherine then playfully slapped me, saying I shouldn't have mentioned it. "The drawing was meant to be a surprise. You knew about today, didn't you?" "Well, I knew it was coming up but didn't know the exact date." Upon hearing this, her eyes widened, and her face quickly turned red. "Oh my, how embarrassing," she exclaimed, covering her face with both hands. Just then, Catherine brought over the drawing she had made as a present. Both she and I exchanged knowing glances upon seeing the drawing. After that, the three of us sat down and enjoyed her birthday dinner. During dinner, she opened up about something personal, something I have never heard before and probably wouldn't hear again. She mistakenly believed that, even after Catherine told me it was her birthday, I ignored it. She didn't like being referred to as Catherine's mom by me because she felt I saw her just as a daycare mom and nothing else. When she picked up Catherine from daycare, she always made an effort to put on makeup and contact lenses because she was conscious of me. She was absent on Catherine's last day at the daycare because the thought of not seeing me again was too painful for her. Basically, she had always had feelings for me. What about that matchmaking? I turned it down. She explained that her going full-time at the clinic run by the doctor who proposed the matchmaking was purely coincidental. She also said that he wasn't the type to mix personal with professional matters. That was me jumping to conclusions. Besides, the head doctor said if that's the case, there's nothing he can do. What do you mean if that's the case? The main reason she hesitated about the matchmaking was Catherine, but there was another reason I hadn't heard. That's because I have someone I'm interested in now. With that said, she unfolded the birthday present drawing that Catherine made. It was a portrait of her, drawn by Catherine. What caught her eye, and she pointed out, was a tiny figure next to it. A man in an apron with a teddy bear emblem on the chest. And with that, my faint admiration became a reality. After dating her for a while, I casually remarked, "But a doctor, and just a preschool teacher like me." She instantly flared up in anger, raising her voice. "What do you mean just? I hate when you belittle yourself like that. I really hate it." Time flew by and now, Catherine, who'll be entering elementary school next year, calls me, "Dad." How did you find today's story? Please hit likes and subscribe to the channel, and it will be a great motivation for us to continue our work. We're looking forward to reading your comments. See you in the next video.